Mr. Grandin.
Well, hello, folks. How are y'all doing this evening?
Give you the microphone here.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Here.
How's everyone doing this evening?
Good.
My name is Egbert Grandin. My friends call me EB, but there was a time when I was afeared that I might lose those friends, and some of my respectability as well. But I'll tell you more about that in a moment. Now, as you may or may not know, when the Erie Canal opened, Palmyra became one of America's great boom towns. Queen of Canal Towns, they called her. And business flourished. And I came here as a young printer's apprentice. And I worked hard, and eventually I purchased my own newspaper, the Wayne Sentinel. In fact, it was published in a building on the north side of Main Street. Then in 1828, I married Miss Harriet Rogers. Fine woman indeed. I was also a village assessor for a time, and a trustee, but I suppose you folks remember me more for the printing business, or maybe the printing of a particular book. That started in, 1829, when a man named Smith came to me and he says he translated a book and wants it published. I said, fine. How many copies do you need? He said 5,000. I said, 5,000 copies. Whew. I tell you, I was sore tempted to take that offer. But I hesitated. You see, people around here were mighty suspicious of that young man. And, well, I heard rumors that I might lose some business if I took up with that man. But in the end, I relented. I published that book. Why? Well, frankly, I couldn't afford not to. That was a large order. And it also turns out that Mr. Smith and I had a common acquaintance, a Mr. Monton Harris. Perhaps you've heard of him? He's got a farm on the north side of the village. He tells me that he's going to mortgage that farm for $3,000 to help pay for that book. And well, I couldn't let Martin down. So we got to work and published it. It was John Gilbert who I set to work putting the typeset together. That was August of 1829. And we finished it in March of the following year. The Book of Mormon. Perhaps you've heard of it. Well, I hear rumors that there are 500 original copies still in circulation today. And some of them are fetching $50,000 a piece. Can you imagine? Oh. Well, after the book was published, I had what you call a financial reversal. I had to divest myself of the printing business. I found enterprises to occupy my time, though. I was a butcher, a tanner, a superintendent of an Erie Canal cargo boat, and a farmer, and a merchant, too. That is until 1845 when I contracted pneumonia, and I reckon that's why I'm here. Did you all see what they put on my tombstone? It says, an honest man, the noblest of God's work. Can you beat that? I reckon I am content. Content indeed.
Excuse me.
Whoa!
Excuse me, Mr. Jones. Hello. I brought some friends to visit you.
Miranda, come here, you're not going to believe this. Where did all you people come from? You're here to help, aren't you? Good, because I'm having trouble here. Come here. Can you hold this right there? Over here.
That's good. Good and broken. Well, my name is John Jones. Great name to have. Do you know how many John Joneses there are? I don't, but I forgot to ask you. Maybe somebody did. I born 1819. Lived in Lyons. Met my future wife, Clarissa Taylor. We got married in 1843. And a few years later, we moved to Clyde, 4th Street in Clyde, and I had a stable there. And while I worked as a machinist, I had this idea come to me, and I made a domestic printing machine. In fact, it looks very similar to this. This is a picture of it, and I called it a mechanical typographer. And I actually got a patent for this in 1852, my very first patent. Well, then a couple years later, we decided, I bought a block of land on Jackson Street in Palmyra for $600. And we moved to Jackson Street in Palmyra, and I opened up a foundry and manufacturing location, and we built printing presses and book and cutters. And with these printing presses, we made all sizes of these printing presses and cutting machines. And because of the location, it was perfect because we were able to ship them all over the world because of the Erie Canal. This is called a clamshell style latent printer. I have 9 patents with my name on it for these kind of printers, and I have 3 more for the cutters. So I did pretty well. In fact, the factory was doing so well, we had over 100 people working there. Unfortunately, we had a terrible thing happen called the war between the states. Work slowed down. I had to find a job, so I actually got a job in Tennessee working in a stable and help feeding the troops. And after the war, came back to this beautiful city of Palmyra. Business picked up again, things are going great. But then unfortunately about 1898, my sweetheart Clarissa died, and I really didn't have the gumption to continue the company, so my son Charles bought it from me. But I got busy. I love looking at the stars. Unfortunately, we're not going to see many stars right now. And my last patent actually was for a improvement to what they call a planetarium. And this planetarium basically was a big box, and it was all mechanical inside. So as these planets revolved around the sun, you could actually tell on certain dates where all the planets would be. It was really cool. I really enjoyed it a lot. But let me check. Oh dear, it is running late. I have to get back to work. I thank you for stopping. Have yourselves a good day now.
What are you doing around here?
I don't know. I'm having an argument with Larry. Shut it, Larry! Hello, everyone. Let me put this right. Don't touch it. No. You watch him.
I got him. I got him.
He's not allowed to drink. He's underage.
Oh.
And his mouth is sewn shut. Hello, everyone. My name is Pirate Whistling. Believe it or not, I was actually here. I built one of the largest houses here in the village. But you know, the silly thing, it's not very smart to kind of move it over and put it on a judge's property. might have been the rub. But anyways, I ended up having to sell it. It's not very good when you're actually wanted from the law. I was wanted. So I sold it to a man named General Rogers. He bought it for a steal. I left. He seemed to think, after finding a bunch of tunnels underneath my house, that I might have buried treasure there. I did, but he never found it. I'm searching for it tonight. However, there's also another bit of news I have. Happens every year. Ironically enough, same name too.
Oh no, not again.
It is. It says, I have a new fiancée. Her name's Giselle.
My darling pirate love.
Look, she's right here, everyone. Come here, darling. How are you? How are your travels?
Good.
That's great. That's great. Everyone, this is Giselle, my fiancée.
Hi, guys.
Throughout the night, we'll tell you about our story and how we met and fell in love and all this. Does it sound great?
Yes, it does.
All right.
You're
All
doing
right.
good.
Oh, thank you so much. I was so nervous knowing you were coming. But, all right, I'll let you go along with your bodyguard. And all you folks, have a nice voyage. Larry, I said no. I'm the only one who understands him. I can translate.
Good evening. I'm Clarissa Wilcox Hall. I was laid to rest here in 1827, right over here where it says Hall. Can you hear me? I was only 31 years old. My parents were some of the first settlers in this area, and I was born in here. When I was 21 years old, I met Ambrose Hall. He was a gentleman. He was hailed from Massachusetts, and he was a lawyer in Massachusetts, and he was here on a hunting trip. And I met him at the well. I remember it well. And I gave him a drink of water. We were married in 1816. He did not practice law here in Palmyra. He did become involved in politics in our county, and he ran for election but was never elected. And sadly, in the year 1827, we both died. I in July, and Ambrose on October 14th, 196 years ago today. He decided to sleep in today. I wonder if Dr. Harriet Adams, had she been alive at the time, who's up yonder, had been able to help us, we would not have perished at such a young age. But alas, we did, and we left behind 6 daughters: Mary, Jane, Catherine, Carolyn, Clarissa, a lovely name, they called her Clara, and their baby Sarah. Now I'm here to tell you about how our family came to leave a little history in Palmyra, and it starts with my 5th daughter, Clarissa. She married Jerome, gotta use my notes. She married Leonard Jerome. He was the nephew of Judge Hiram Jerome, who practiced law on Market Street. Market Street is where all the museums are. And if you haven't been there to visit, I would take a visit there. Now Clarissa and Jerome, he was a very successful man, and they had 4 daughters. And they lived in New York, and they were able to afford to send their daughters to Europe, an unusual thing probably at that time, and they lived like ladies. Well, one of their daughters, Jenny Jerome, they say she was beautiful. She came to fall into love with a man in England, a lord. He was a nobleman, and she became an English lady. Now, my granddaughter Jenny and her first husband, Lord Randolph Churchill, had 2 sons, the first of which was named Winston. Now, perhaps you've heard of him? If you haven't, you'll find him in a history book. Has anyone heard of Winston Churchill? Well, my granddaughter was his mother. Did you know that he had an American mother? Well, he did. And her grandparents, Ambrose Hall and I, Clarissa Wilcox Hall, are buried here. So the next time you read about Winston Churchill in a World War II history book or see his picture or hear a quote by him, remember that he has roots here in Palmyra. I'm getting a little tired. I thank you all for joining us this evening and listening to me brag about my great-grandson.
Thank you, Forrest. Good evening. Look at you. So
I had
beautiful.
heard that there was a group out and about, and
Yes.
I hoped it wasn't true.
Oh.
We've talked about this.
I know, I'm sorry. It's not quite dark.
Do you know how dangerous it is to travel when it's so light out still? You all take many, many risks. We have talked to your leader about this. You should only travel under the cover of night. It's too dangerous. Too dangerous. Good evening and welcome. There's so many of you. Oh, you must travel in a nice tight group so you don't get caught, okay? Promise me, yes? Okay. You gotta watch out for the ones on the end. Okay. Welcome. I am Anna Ruth Webster Eaton, and I was born to Nathaniel and Betsy Webster in New Hampshire in 1823. I was one of 4 children. My siblings Betsy and William sadly would pass away at the ages of 8 and 5, and so only my brother Nathaniel and I would live a prosperous, long life. I grew up to become a school teacher until I met Horace. Horace was born in 1810, also in New Hampshire. He was the 11th child to his widowed mother, and she was very spiritual, and she passed on scripture to Horace, and he felt called to carry that on. So Horace was a doctor of divinity at the West Presbyterian Church up the road. We were married in 1845, and he took the pulpit in 1849 and was there for 30 years. Ladies, let's admit it, you could listen to him preach every Sunday, huh? Not bad looking, was he? He was mine. We loved our little town of Palmyra. We were here for all of our lives. Horace believed that we were all created equal and that we should all be treated fairly. We were called to help our brothers and sisters of the darker skinned color make sure that they traveled safely along the Underground Railroad. And so with the help of our fine neighbor, Mr. Pliny Sexton, not to be confused with Pliny T. Sexton, they're 2 very different people, as you must know. But Mr. Sexton would house the fine folks in his house just down the road on Main Street and then move them to our church, where Horace would keep them in the steeple until it was safe to move on. Unlike you risk takers, we would only travel at night. Story goes that one day we had a large group up in the steeple and the bell rang, and they all shook with fear that Horace would turn them into their masters if they had come calling. Horace gained their trust, and we continued to help with the Underground Railroad for many years. Along with being Horace's wife and the daughter of Nathaniel and Betsy, I was also a mother of 5. After we were married, we had Horace, and then John. We would lose John at 20. We had Anna, who died sadly at 2.5 years old, the same year that we had Mary, and then we had Elizabeth. Elizabeth would be our long-lasting child. She would die at the age of 63. She would die 15 years after bearing me. I made it to the ripe old age of 89. In 1881, I added author to my list of accomplishments, and I wrote The Origins of Mormonism. That was my first book. In 1883, I would bury Horace. Horace was known for keeping a number of journals, so it was only right that I write his memoirs in 1885, and published my second book. I continued to work for the rights of our neighbors of the darker skin and those of women until my death in 1910, where I passed away peacefully in my sleep with Elizabeth by my side at 155 Canandaigua Road. So my house still stands if you're ever out and about. It's near what you call a primary school. We just had 1 rooms. We didn't have big buildings. But that is the story of Horace and I wish you luck. Travel with speed. Be safe on your way. It is too light out.
Okay. Hello, Dr. Harriet Adams here for here for your service. I have been here since 1886. I was one of the first female doctors in America, the first in Palmyra. I've practiced in my home up on East Main Street, across from the Garlock House, right over there. I practiced for 30 years until a brain tumor ended my life. I was only 56 years old. I had a great life helping and treating patients from Palmyra and other places. I charge $5 to deliver a baby and 75 cents for a doctor's visit. That is really it. I had a great life helping others, like I said, and that's really it.
Good evening, Captain Lakey.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ira Lakey. I was born and raised in Palmyra, the son of Abner Lakey. In my youth, I helped repair houses with my father and my brother Franklin. I also tried my hand at watchmaking and clock building, but I found that wasn't my true passion. The sea was calling my name. And I'd go on to become a sailor. I would sail out of the ports of New Haven and New Bedford, Connecticut, and I would captain 2 ships, the Siren Queen and the Harvest. And I would make a lot of money for those ship owners, hunting various whales such as humpback whale and sperm whale. And I'd have an illustrious career up to 2 decades, from 1835 to 1855. And I would sail around the world twice. And I must say, nothing beats the smell of the sea and the wind in your face as you go on another adventure. Why? If it isn't my dear half-sister, Lucy Lakey Bowman.
Ira, it's so good to see you back home. Are you
Here.
You too. Are you finally settling down after sailing the world, what, twice was it?
It was twice. I loved every minute of it. I've heard you've been quite busy.
Oh yes. We've had plenty of cause to fight for here in Palmyra. In fact, you know I love to throw a good party.
You do.
Well, in 1863 we threw the Freedom Fancy Dance. And I made my husband, Charles,
Wow.
this suit.
Very nice.
It's a suit that is half black and half white. Quite a statement for that time period, isn't it? Yes, we had a fabulous time, and I had a fabulous time making it. And in fact, if any of you women would like the pattern to make for your very own husbands, I can give that to you tonight. It was an extraordinary event, but most of all, it was an honoring and gathering of support of our dark-red skinned brothers and sisters, and the proceeds went to their cause. And well, Ira, isn't that just great?
That is wonderful. You've definitely been very busy.
Oh yes, we begun the Palmyra Historical Society. There's quite a few of us involved, and we're having frequent meetings at the Union Club rooms.
Wonderful.
It is very important to preserve the history of this wonderful town and village. We must be active in our efforts to document what has happened and what will happen, even in your very own villages. So, Ira, my dear brother, tell me, how did that king make out when you sent his...
I'm glad that you asked. So I was sailing the Pacific Ocean around the southern tip of South America when I came along the islands of the Carolines. There was a small island called Strong's Island where my ship crashed along the shore. Now, we didn't have the proper tools to repair the ship, but luckily someone on board my ship happened to know the native language of the people of the island. So we were able to enlist their help to help repair it. It took up to 3 months to repair that ship. Now, myself as a Quaker, I'm very tolerant and appreciative of the help of those fine people on the island. So, now, there was a king on this island, and this king had a son, and the son was very ill. But luckily, on board our ship, we had the proper medications to help revive and heal the son back to health.
Ira, you do love to tell a tale, don't you?
I sure do. And that same son would go on to become king of his own on that island. It is one of my proudest and finest moments helping those people. Now, would you say we should let these fine people go on their merry way this evening?
I should say so.
Excellent.
Thank you all so much. Have a good evening, and we bid you good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Oh, and don't forget, support your local historical societies.
Everybody's doing okay so far? Yeah. Okay, we haven't lost anybody? Okay. That pirate can be tricky, I'm just telling you.
Oh, is he here again tonight?
He is, Mamie.
Oh.
Yes, every year he comes out. I'm telling you, always looking for that buried treasure.
Well, thank you for showing up tonight, folks. It's kind of a chilly night, but we're glad to see you all here. Let me introduce myself. I'm Mary Aldrich Phelps, but please call me Mamie. All my friends call me Mamie. I welcome you to our family plot where all my family is resting over here. My in-laws, William and Catherine, my sister-in-law, Mary Louise, my sweet daughter, Sybil, and of course myself and my husband, Julius. Oh, where's my manners? Julius, get out here. Come here, Julius.
Amy, why are you bothering me?
Come on, Julius, these folks want to see you.
Who are they? Why are you here?
To learn.
About me? Well, Julius Phelps, at your service. My family originally grew up in Ogdensburg. I don't know if you know where that is, up by the Thousand Islands. My parents were married in Schenectady, and my sister and I were born in Rochester, New York. I was just 17 days old when our family moved to Palmyra, right on Market Street, where the store still stands there. At the time, it is my understanding it was a boarding house. And somebody told me they rented by the hour, not sure why.
Oh, you know why, Julius.
Probably because of the cruise off the canal.
Probably, yeah, that's it, that's it.
But anyway, my father had to do a lot of repairs to it. Put a second staircase to our residence upstairs on the second floor. Even added a rental property on the back south side of it. And also put in a storage room, as well as a brand new kitchen with a cistern. I operated the store from 1905 to 1940. It was then that I closed the door and locked it and walked away.
It was so unfortunate that you did that, Julius. You know you broke my heart when you did that. It still hurts. It really does.
I'm sorry.
But we had so many wonderful memories in that beautiful home. As Julius said, we lived in the residence upstairs. It was a boarding house. It's a true story, okay? And Sybil continued to live there after we passed. I passed in 1955, and my dear Julius passed in 1960. So we had a good life there. The interesting thing is, Sybil lived until 1976, and she didn't have electricity, running water, or indoor plumbing. Can you imagine that? She used an outhouse. Oh my goodness. So tell us why'd you close that store?
Well, my father had a very successful business there with the store. He gave it to me as a legacy, I suppose. Not sure I was really into it. But then 1920s came along and the stock market crashed. We lost everything. We had no money.
We had no money
We
at
had
all.
no money. Nobody had money. They even closed the bank uptown on Main Street. So nobody could buy anything. I couldn't even afford to repair the store. You know, Mamie will tell you that we never had running water. That's not true. We had a leaking roof.
That is true. It was leaking all the way down to the
I'm not
second
kidding.
floor.
And so then World War II occurs, and I was fed up. I was done. So I closed the door, locked it, walked away, never opened it again, left everything on the shelf, even fresh eggs that are still there today. I'm not kidding.
Have any of you been there to see the fresh eggs that are sitting on the counter? Okay. If you haven't, you got to get there to see them.
I don't recommend eating them.
Can I share a little bit more about our daughter? Sybil was an amazing, talented young lady. She went to the Eastman School of Music. She played the piano and guitar. She also went to New York City and studied acting until the money ran out. Her Aunt Mary Louise had left her some money, and once that ran out, she called her dad, and he said, what? No money, right? No more money. You got to come back to Palmyra, which she did. We raised her in the Episcopal Church, which then she turned to spiritualism. We were not happy about that, were we, Julius?
Oh, no.
But then she made friends with the Fox sisters, who Tracy knows very well. And
Yeah, the crazy Fox sisters. Have you ever heard of them? Anyway, I am tired. I am cranky. Just go away.
Please, 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 please. I'm so sorry about my husband's rudeness. As he said, he's just a cranky old grumpy man. But he really loves to have people come and visit. But when you come to visit, you might hear him say, "Get out! Get out!" But please, when we get bored here, we pop over to the museum all the time, so don't be surprised if you see us there.
Police checkpoint.
Oh boy.
Looking for a few wanted criminals. None of you look too suspicious.
We have no pirate.
No pirate.
No
Good. He's wanted in several counties for lots of mischief and mayhem and shenanigans. Well, my name's Henry Hilborn, police chief here in Palmyra. I came to this small town in my late 20s in 1922. They made me chief. Government figured they'd bring some big town law to tackle small town crime, and let me tell you, tackling crime is what I was good at. We put away everyone from arsonists to carjackers, thieves, speeders, gypsies, the cider gang, you name it, we caught them all. Well, except for those few fellas, they decided it'd be a smart idea to dress a dummy up like a woman. And they put her on the side of the road and called out to any cars coming by to help. And when someone was nice enough to pull over and offer assistance to the fine young plastic woman, well, they would get carjacked. So we heard word of this going on. We got right up there, and right when we were about to arrest those gentlemen, they ran into the woods, never to be seen again. But I'll tell you, the day that they do show up and we catch them and put them in cuffs, they will be the dummies. I remember this one time, big shot, thought he'd make it rich here in Palmyra, Mr. Lee. Oh, he came into town with his little swindle. First thing he did was went to a local store owner, Mr. Runterman. Mr. Runterman was a good man. Good head on his shoulder, smart man. Well, he didn't get swindled, and he came directly to me. And I went and I arrested Mr. Lee, and I stopped his soap swindle right then and there. He thought he could slip away from the law. Well, I got him. Sure did. But you know, being police chief in Palmyra wasn't all fun and games. In fact, I was shot at twice. Once in my barn at the old Mitchell place. Another time from a high-powered rifle from a speeding car grazed my cheek. Nowadays, I hear you folks call that a drive-by. One time, in fact, the government actually hired me in a big bootlegging sting. I'm sure you folks are all well aware back in the 20s in my day, we had a little thing called prohibition. There was no alcohol allowed at all. So if any of you are under the influence or easily influenced, come forward. I will be taking contraband and dealing with it properly. In any case, I was on this big raid of the old hotel, Exchange Hotel, on the corner of East Main and Canal. We went in, and I was arresting the owner, Mr. Hobart, and his wife came and attempted to destroy a bottle of wine. Greatest crime imaginable, I tell you. Crime that I do not take lightly. That's alcohol abuse. Be very careful, ladies and gentlemen, with what you do and what you say. You will get caught. You will find out. But, you know, it all came to a head in September 1923. I came home from Canandaigua and collapsed into my wife's arms. The doctor was called, and, Mr. Nesbitt sent me to the hospital where I died. He discovered it was probate poisoning. All the newspapers read, Cider Gang kills Chief. Now, I won't know exactly who did it. Probably never will, but if I had to bet my money, it would be the Cider Gang. In fact, the saddest thing about it all was they couldn't prove that I got poisoned while I was on the job. You know, I told my mother once, you don't know how hard it is doing what I do and the struggle that we go through. It takes a lot of guts to be police chief. In fact, it takes a lot of guts to be any law enforcement. But I'll tell you what, they couldn't prove that I got poisoned on the job. My wife neither got my pension nor any other financial compensation. Had to raise my children all by her lonesome with no assistance. Now that's real guts. And my wife will always be my biggest hero. In fact, I tried to be as big a hero as I could to the town. Not only was I the local law around here, but I wanted to get to know the folks at Palmyra. Did my best to really be part of the community. In fact, one of my fondest memories was playing Santa Claus as the poor folk held their little carnival for the American Legion. I loved what I did, and I loved this small town, and even though I was only here for a short amount of time, it was a good amount of time. Well, I'll let you folks go, and just be warned, do not speed in Palmyra. You will get pulled over and you will get ticketed. On another note, there's a lot of deer running around this time of year, so be very careful driving around in your new fancy high-tech automobiles. And if you do happen to hit a deer, just make sure I get a backstrap out of the whole ordeal. All right, well, I best be on my way, making sure that none of these folks coming alive tonight are still dead drunk. All right,
Thank you, Chief.
You folks have a good one.
Where's my Giselle?
Dead.
She better not be dead. That only happened once. It wasn't my fault.
What number is this Giselle, by chance?
I don't know. I don't like to count. It's not polite.
Oh,
6 or
okay,
7.
sorry.
She's counting now. Well, how are you?
My darling pirate, how are you doing?
Who wants to hear a story? No.
Yeah, let's hear a story.
Excellent. Well, you must be a part of this. You're the one that knows that I was drunk at the time. So, the way we met, it was so fantastic, wasn't it?
Yes,
It was absolutely love at first sight. Once I could see clearly.
Yeah.
Yes. She won my heart with a beautiful song. She was there in the tavern singing her heart away. Would you like to share that song with everyone?
You know, I think you might be remembering it wrong. I think you were too drunk to remember the whole song, right?
It might have been. I know it had 2 ducks in it. Were they ducks or were they monkeys?
Might have been monkeys.
It might have been monkeys. Either way, I loved it so much. Thank you so much for coming into my life. And I might even share my treasure with you. I know it's like what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. But I'll be nice. I'll share some.
Good.
All right. Well, I will see you later. I'm still hunting down Rogers and my treasure. There was a Rogers there. It's the wrong one.
Sorry about that.
Thanks.
There's many.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I forgot a shovel.
Yeah.
I'm having to use my bare hands to do it.
FYI, the chief's up that way.
I have to go.
Yes, you go find your treasure.
Well, I have to stay away from the chief.
Good evening. Churchill's the name. Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill, at your service. No, I'm not in residence here. Just popped over to visit the relations, don't you know? Or maybe you don't know that I am one half genuine bona fide American. My mother was the remarkable Jenny Jerome from Brooklyn, New York. Since I spent much of my childhood away at boarding school, she and I maintained a long-distance relationship via letter correspondence, which a trove of letters which I have recently rediscovered.
Dearest Winston, I suppose when your exchequer is at low ebb, I shall have the pleasure of hearing from you. Your affectionate mother.
My exchequer, as she says, was what you would call your bank account. You could tell from her sarcasm that we shared a frank and honest relationship via letter for many years, including one letter I received regrettably.
12 June 1890. Dearest Winston, I'm sending this by your nanny, who is going to see how you are getting on. I would go down to you, but I have so many things to do and to arrange about the Ascot party next week that I can't manage it. I have much to say to you. I'm afraid not of a pleasant nature. You know, darling, how I hate to find fault with you, but I can't help myself this time. In the first place, your father is very angry with you for not acknowledging the gift of £5 for a whole week and then writing an offhanded, careless letter. Your report, which I enclose, is, as you will see, a very bad one. You worked with such a fitful, inharmonious way that you are bound to come out last. Look at your place in the form. Your father and I are both more disappointed than we can say. That you are not able to go up for your preliminary exam, I dare say you have 1,000 excuses for not doing so. But there the fact remains. If only you had a better place in your form and were a little more methodical, I would try to find an excuse for you. Dearest Winston, you make me very unhappy. I had built up such hopes about you and felt so proud of you, and now all is gone. My only consolation is that your conduct is good and you are an affectionate son, but your work is an insult to your intelligence. If you would only trace out a plan of action for yourself and carry it out to be determined to do so, I am sure you would accomplish anything you wish. It is that thoughtlessness of yours which is your greatest enemy. I will say no more now, but Winston, you are old enough to see how serious this is to you, and how the next year or two and the use you make of them will affect your whole life. Stop and think it out for yourself, and take a good pull before it is too late. You know, dearest boy, that I will always help you when I can. Your loving but distressed mother.
I responded on 19 June 1890. My darling Mummy, I have not written till now because I can write a much longer letter later. I will not try to excuse myself for not working hard, because I know that what with one thing and another, I have been rather lazy. Consequently, when the month ended and the crash came, I got a bad report and got put on reports. That is more than 3 weeks ago, and in the coming months I am bound to get a good report. My own Mummy, I can tell you your letter cut me very much. Still, there is plenty of time before the end of term, and I will do my very best in what time remains. Goodbye, my own. With love, I remain your own Winston S. Churchill. On a less difficult matter, I asked my mother once about my American heritage.
Dearest Winston, with regards to your American ancestors, my parents, Leonard Jerome and Clara Hall, were wed in Palmyra, New York at the Presbyterian Church on Main Street. Clara's parents, my grandparents, were Ambrose Hall, one of Palmyra's first settlers, and Clarissa Wilcox, half Iroquois, from whom that savage red Indian blood courses through your veins. Your grandpapa, Leonard Jerome, and his brother Lawrence began their professional careers in their Uncle Hiram Jerome's law offices on Market Street, also in Palmyra. Uncle Hiram was one of Wayne County's first judges. Later, Leonard moved office and published a newspaper in nearby Rochester, New York, before relocating the family to Brooklyn. My father made a lot and lost several fortunes in New York. In fact, he was once known as the King of Wall Street. The Jerome Mansion once stood on the corner of Madison Avenue and 26th Street with a view of Madison Square Park. It included a 600-seat theater, a breakfast room that seated 70, and a ballroom of white and gold with champagne and cologne spouting fountains. He was also sometime proprietor and editor of the New York Times and manned a Gatling gun in front of the newspaper's building during the draft riots of 1863.
I always took great pride in my American heritage, and had at least 3 forebears who fought in the winning side of the American War for Independence. Ambrose Hall and Samuel Jerome fought with the Berkshire Militia in Massachusetts, and Major Labaeus Ball of the 4th Massachusetts Continental Regiment also did good service, including the winter with Washington at Valley Forge. On another occasion, I asked my mother about my parents' courtship.
Dearest Winston, my mother brought my 2 sisters and I to be educated in Paris. But really, I think it was to find landed husbands among the European nobility. At the end of the Franco-Prussian War, we were some of the last foreigners to flee Paris for London. On vacation at a sailing regatta in 1873 at the Isle of Wight, I caught the eye of your father, and the Prince of Wales himself introduced us. Lord Randolph and I were engaged after 3 days. We married at the British Embassy in Paris in April 1874, and you were born within the year.
It was given out that I was born 2 months prematurely. Or perhaps my parents didn't wait for the wedding. When asked, I replied, although present on the occasion, I have no recollection of the events leading up to it. My father died in 1895, and my mother remarried 2 more times before her death in 1921. We grew much closer in those years, and she became one of my closest allies. Our correspondence concluded with one final letter from my mother, in which she expressed concern over my misapprehension about her niece Claire accepting an invitation to Moscow to sculpt Lenin and Trotsky.
Dearest Winston, I received the enclosed from Claire this morning. She begs me to see that it gets to you direct. It is rather pathetic how she hankers for your goodwill. Don't be too hard on her. Bless you. You know I am expecting you tomorrow for dinner, and only Jack and the Laveries. I will try to turn up by 10:15 tomorrow, but I may miss you. Love, your mother.
Less than 2 months later, while visiting a friend in Somerset and wearing her new fashionable high-heeled shoes, Jenny unfortunately tripped down the stairs and broke her ankle rather badly. The wound was infected, turned gangrenous, and the surgeons had to remove her leg from below the knee. And although she began recovering on June 29th, she hemorrhaged and sadly passed. Since her husband at the time was in Nigeria, my brother Jack and I led the family behind her coffin to the churchyard at Blake. As I look back on these correspondence, I compose one final letter in my mind. Excuse me, folks, the eyesight isn't quite what it has been. Dearest Mummy, I miss you frightfully. During my youth, you shone for me like the evening star. I loved you dearly, but at some distance. I have been ever so grateful that we grew closer as the years went by. I have lived a most extraordinary life, and have seen no small measure of success. I led Britain through some of her darkest hours, and helped save the world from an unspeakable evil. I must say I'm glad you did not have to know. For my efforts, I received 2 honorary doctorates of law from 2 American universities, Harvard and the University of Rochester. And because of the family connection to this region, I accepted the degree from Rochester first. I was knighted and awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1953, but perhaps my greatest honor, and one that brought me full circle, you might say, came in 1963 when President Kennedy bestowed upon me honorary citizenship in the United States. I accepted the honor with deep gratitude and affection. Ever your loving son, Winston S. Churchill.
Thank you, Mr. Churchill.
Good evening, everyone. I am Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Corning. I am a lawyer by profession and a soldier by choice. I grew up in Palmyra. I was just actually sitting down to write a letter to my wife. It is 1861. It's a dreary day, just like the script says. And in my letter to my wife, I want to console her in the fact that our son John is going to join me at Big Chestnut in Washington, the camp. And I'm sure it's been very hard on her, not only losing me, but also having lost him as well to the war. And I want to try to console her the best I can, so I've started this letter. Camp of Big Chestnut, October 22nd, 1861. Dear Julia, it is a rainy, cheerless day, and I have frequently thought of you and the children at home today. And more especially as this is the day that John has fixed upon for his departure from home to join me here. It is now about 4:00 p.m., and I presume that as I write this, he is being transported by railroad through the state en route for this point. And if so, I have no doubt but that you and the children are feeling somewhat lonely this afternoon. But by the time you will hold this sheet in your hands, I trust that you and Martha and Julia will have somewhat reconciled to the matter of John's absence from home. And I trust that for your own good and happiness, and that of each of you, that you will try to banish all foreboding from your minds, and that each one of you will endeavor to cheer and make each other happy.
Dear Julia, try and realize the distance between you and your husband, and soon perhaps your son, is not very great, that you can and will most likely hear from us almost every day, and that generally such intelligence will have come directly from us but about 48 hours prior to the time you will have received it. And do not imagine that if we should go into an action, that out of 50 or 100,000 men, that your husband and son, either or both of them, be among the killed. It will do no good but injury. Rather hope and pray and trust in God that He is able and may protect us both from sickness and death, and that we both may return to you and live many years in peace and happiness under the protection of our government, that we may be humble instruments in aiding to maintain and sustain against the wicked rebellion now waged against, and that its blessings may be perpetuated to our prosperity.
If nothing prevents, I shall go to Washington tomorrow, expecting to meet John in the evening and to aid him in taking care of his things and getting it to camp. Affectionately, your husband, Joseph. So the great news is, both I and John survived the war. We had when we volunteered, we were the first ones from Wayne County to join the Civil War, and there were 80 of us that actually marched. There were people from Walworth and Marion and Palmyra and Macedon, and we met at the Presbyterian Church, and there was a sending off ceremony there, and we actually were able to march down Main Street with the people who were basically going to, by foot, go to Washington, D.C. to be brought to camp and properly trained. I went into the war as a captain and came out as lieutenant colonel. I have to admit it was mostly by attrition. The thing that I'm most known for is my service at the Battle of Antietam. There was a gap in the mountains that we were forced to, we had to force march. Artillery was blazing down around us. I lost several men trying to get there. Finally, General McClellan called us back and then sent us up further off the flank to try it again. And we repelled again. And the third time we went up, we actually turned the North Carolina regiment and got several volleys right into the heart of their army there. And we wanted to proceed forth on what they call now the Burnside Bridge. Back then it didn't have a name. And General Hooker told us that we could not go further. We had an opportunity to roll the flank and they wouldn't let us go. I went on to, I served my stint 2 years. Came back and I was mustered in Geneva. On June 14th, 1863, 2 weeks later, my regiment went to Gettysburg. My son and I were fairly fortunate not to take part in that. There was a lot of men lost there. And a year later, I decided that I wanted to re-enlist. So in 1864, I re-enlisted again and saw the war to the end. After the war was over, I went back to being a lawyer here in Palmyra. And then later on in my life, I decided to go to New York City, and I kept books there for a firm that was there. But I wanted to be buried back in Palmyra. So there I am. Thank you for coming tonight.
Hey, steal a coin.
Gold coin.
Where's my Giselle? There she is. I can see her shining bright and day. How are you, love? Well,
Did you find your treasure yet?
I did. I know where it is.
Oh,
I've
wow.
yet to go get it, but first I felt I had to come speak with you first. Unfortunately, I'm being called out to the sea again. That's where the treasure is.
Yeah.
Yes, and my dear, you are a little clingy. And so,
That's hurtful.
well, you know, it's not me, it is you. So,
Wow.
the distance makes the heart grow fonder. I will be far more fonder away. So I do have to break up with you, but I will give you a consolation prize. It is yours to take and remember me by.
Thank you.
Yes, the treasure's mine. That's your treasure.
Wow.
Donuts all around.
Why, hello. My name is Nettie Bolus. Came all this way. I feel it is appropriate to tell you about myself and my family. Brother Charles and I grew up learning 4 main principles. And those principles were never waste anything. Education is a lifelong process, honest and hard work, and get your money's worth. When my great-grandfather and his family moved from Vermont to Macedon in 1837, they always held on to these principles. On the other hand, my father graduated from Cornell University with degrees in math and civil engineering. He continued to read and collect books on both subjects, which you can now find in the Macedon Public Library in a room named after our family. I know, we're great. I graduated in 1911 and went on to teach school in Marion. I lived for about 86 years, and if any of you call that old, you might just want to hear the story of a not-so-nice lady they call Mary Durfee. Mary Durfee was the first and the last person to call me old. Her hair got caught in the wheel of her wagon, and she was dragged to her death. How unfortunate. Some ask, how did her hair even reach the wheel of her wagon? Well, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. That was a hands-on job.
Well, I never! You bullets is always going around spreading lies about those who are better than you. Hold on, folks. I'll be right there. Give me. Ow! Okay, I don't need this. Can somebody hold this? Somebody hold this. Wait. Do you know this person? Are they trustworthy?
Yeah, I think so.
You sure?
Yeah.
If anything happens, I had nothing to do with it. Alright. Well, folks, my name is Mary Durfee, and I come from a long line of Durfees who settled here in Palmyra in the early 1790s. Gideon Durfee, the first Durfee, paid John Swift $600 in coin for his farmland. The farm, Turkey Hollow, was sold by my son Lorenzo in 1925 when he decided to move to a village where my granddaughters are raised. Do any of you know Prudence Lorraine? No? You might know Prudence by her nickname, Prudy. You know, she was named after not a great aunt, but a great-great aunt. Actually, you look like you'd be a great-great aunt. Let's see here. Lorraine, when looking for work, decided to go after her first love, history, which is what you could call Nettie Bullis over there. You know, word of the wise, don't ever, under any circumstance, get in a wagon with that lady unless you want to die a very painful death. Oh, that was horrible. Oh my gosh. Well, Rain soon went to the rank of the Palmyra Courier Journal under the column title Looking Back. Not much going on back there, but then again, not much really going on in front of me. So there were a bunch of people who decided to go listen to Bullis first. It's okay. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I'm definitely mad. You should know that. Alright. The Rain went to become the town's historian, actually, and became a big part in the founding of the Ellen Coverlet Museum and the Palmyra Historical Museum. You can see the girls' vast collection of dolls upstairs at the Historical Museum. And all the eyes watching you, are they judging you? Definitely not. But I am. That's a personal choice. There. Once you look at the time, it's been a pleasure seeing you all tonight. I hope you have a very beautiful... Hey, that's my wheel. Let me give that to you. Oh, you go. Steal my stuff. Go, go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost at the end of our show here. Thank you all for being so wonderfully patient. It got very dark. And
This is the fun interactive part.
this is the fun interactive.
Don't worry, Giselle. You're done. I need some volunteers this time. Who wants to volunteer? Raise your hand.
Don't be shy. Separate up. Be a volunteer.
Like this.
Sooner we get it over with, the sooner we can move on.
You know the real secret is I don't pick the people with their hands up. So it's a free for all. My dear lady, how are you? Could you please go stand over there for me?
I think this gentleman in the orange is just begging to be a volunteer.
Oh, I think this might be a very good one. Let's see. I thought of you.
Oh, no!
You go up there too, sir. And we'll take the air in the mouth. Hi. How are you? That's awesome. Why don't you go up there? Yeah, we've got my victims. I mean, sailors. So the fun fact is, I did find my treasure. It's right behind you. The problem is, it's enchanted, and I need some help opening it. How many of you have seen this already? Oh, not a whole lot. This is even going to be better. All right, why don't you spread out a little bit so everybody can see the treasure chest? All right. Now, which one of you play an instrument? Any of you have? No. Great. I can just free for all that too. So, I need you to play a trumpet. Can you do that for me? Awesome. Can we try it right now? Oh, it sounds lovely, heavenly. Yes. How are you with your hands?
In what way?
I just need you to do this. No, not me. Oh, man. That's a chest. If you're not careful, you'll blow somebody up, set them on fire. It's not good. Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right.
That's great. I need you to dance like a monkey. Can you do that for me? You don't have to do it yet. I won't make you do it yet. You can surprise everyone. You, sir. I need you to make the sound of a salamander. Can you do that? All right, well, you can make it up as you go on. So why don't you all kind of back up so everybody can see? And we're going to do this on the count of 3. Don't forget, dance like a monkey, salamander, wiggly fingers, and your lovely instrument, all right? All right, 1, 2, 3. He's even making the sound. That is fantastic. All right. It's doing something. You all stopped. I wonder why it's not doing anything. Yeah, you gotta keep going. Okay, it's getting hot. I can definitely see it doing something. All right. Excellent. Got it? No, it's not supposed. You wiggled your fingers too much. You literally set it on fire. Come on. Well, this wasn't the enchanted chest. No, it's Charlie. He fell to pieces when he heard about coming here. But unfortunately, I don't think this chest is actually enchanted. It's not even locked. Oh, there's the treasure. There it is. Why don't you give my 4 victims a nice round of applause?
Alright, break it up. What's going on over here? Oh, it's you.
It's nice meeting everybody.